Got it. I clicked the got it button.
And
Oh, and now I got it again. Woohoo.
all right. Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Heroes of the Heart podcast. Our hero of the heart today is my good friend, Heather Vickery. And Heather is a global leader and success coach that helps people leverage their fears into intentional bravery. She's a celebrated public speaker and has inspired audiences and supported others with the tools they need to live empowered, bold, joy-filled, and successful lives. She's also a best-selling author and the host of 2 podcasts, The Brave Files and Was It Chance. Heather is an achiever of unrealistic dreams and the founder of the Everyday Brave Revolution. Welcome to Heroes of the Heart, Heather.
Thank you, Steve. It's always so fun and so nice to see you.
Likewise. So take me back to the beginning, maybe to a time when your knees were shaking and your voice was quaking and you hadn't yet launched all the bravery work that you are doing now. When was that and where was that?
Oh, goodness gracious. It's an interesting question to answer because I wasn't like that as a child. I felt very entitled to everything that I wanted. I'll give my mom credit for that. We were dirt poor and she would dig through the couch for coins to get gas money to go to work. But I never felt poor and I never felt less than, and I was always celebrated and cheered on. And that is a lucky thing because not all children have that. I was never afraid to speak my mind or do what I wanted to do. But what I did subconsciously, very subconsciously, was just follow the path that society put out for me. I knew I wanted to have kids. So that meant I had to get married to a man. That meant I had to do all these things. And I did them. One exception is that I realized very quickly out of college that while I worked well with people, I did not work well for people. And so after about 3 or 4 years working for people, I was like, F this, I'm going to start my own business. And I did out of nowhere with very little experience, no money backing. Like, folks, you can do all kinds of cool things as long as you believe that you can. All right. So then fast forward about a decade, I was married. So that knee quaking, here we go. I was married. I had several children. I didn't have all of my children yet. And I realized that I was married to the wrong gender. So I had this perfect on paper life. My spouse at the time made lots of money. We had a big, beautiful house that people would walk into and go, wow, this is my dream house. I had a business that was highly successful, beautiful, healthy children. And I didn't like any of it. I felt small and scared. Every decision I made was fear-based, everything. What'll hurt less? What'll cause the less trauma? What is this? I started to hide away. I really pulled away from anybody who knew me well at all because I didn't know what to say to them. It was really traumatic. That was years in the process of, I'm just not going to engage with anyone. It took me, maybe 20 years to reconnect with anyone that I went to high school or college with. My relationship with my mom had always been excellent. And I fully pulled away from that because when you don't like yourself and when you don't like your choices and you don't know how to explain who you are, it's just easier to hide from everyone. And then it became more and more clear that I was definitely married to the wrong gender. And that's not about sex. We tried to make that work. It didn't work. It's about connection. It's about who you are, about showing up authentically into the world. And I had this moment, this epiphany moment at the breakfast table, sitting with my daughters. By this time I had 4 daughters. And I thought, what would I tell them if they came to me in this situation or something similar where they were living this false life that was fear-based? And I knew that I would say to them, my darling, the world is waiting for you to play large. You have worth and value, and we need you to step up. And I realized at that moment, if I wanted that for them, I had to do that for me and show them how. And that was the day everything changed. Steve, I can't hear you. There we go. Okay.
Tell me about that change. You were imagining for your child a future where they were fully expressed and, able to live large. And yet at the same time, you described yourself as kind of withdrawn and not living, one, not married to the right gender for you, and two, that you were withdrawn from many of the relationships that had been important to you in your earlier life, including with your mother. What was that transition like for you?
Yeah, and I have to kind of giggle because I don't know that anybody who knew me would have thought in that space would have thought I was holding anything back. You know me, Steve. I'm loud. I say what I want. I'm not apologetic. And I wasn't any different then, except I felt different internally. Right. I was still a fierce ally and an activist and, all of those things. What changed for me in that moment was somehow I freed myself from expectations. And I thought, if my why is to show my kids that they can do anything, well, then I will fucking go out and do anything. Sorry, you don't like curse words. I like curse words. Right. And so a switch just flipped in that moment where I was like, okay, let's try this. And so this is why my business is Brave. The book you guys can see over my shoulder is called F Fearless. I spelled it all the way out. I was scared. And we are scared as human beings. Fear is a natural, normal human emotion. The fear wasn't going anywhere, but I was going to make these decisions and take this action anyway. And so I stepped into bravery, and bravery is taking your fear along for the ride. Fearlessness is bullshit because it doesn't exist. Now, that isn't to say maybe there are some things that you do that don't frighten you, that frighten other people. So for example, this thing we're doing right now, we're on video, anyone can see it. It's going to be on audio. Anyone can hear it. Lots of people are terrified of that. You and I are not terrified of that. So everybody's brave is different. And it's really important to recognize that. And then I was able to take all of the steps I used. I burned my whole life to the ground. I closed my highly successful business and started a whole new one. Again, like, I don't want to say out of nowhere with either of them because I had made connections. I had a network, I had a general idea of how to start a business, but it was all brand new, which is insane. I look back and I'm like, what? I did that? And I created the Brave method, which is Brave as an acronym for, ways that we as human beings can problem solve, dream, design, build, and then actually have a life that we love. And if you are an entrepreneur or a leader or an executive, having your business fit into your life instead of pretzeling your life around your business.
That's a good analogy. And for those of you who are listening rather than watching, Heather did an awesome little pretzel diagram with her finger in the air.
Yeah, me, I'm an air diagrammer. Really, I'm successful in that.
I'm looking also behind you and at your book, F Fearless. First of all, I also want to do a parenthetical statement here. I'm okay with you swearing. I'm not okay with me swearing. So
okay, good. Thank you. Because obviously, hard as I try, it's really like, I can't stop.
And I want you to be you because you are awesome. So
thanks, Steve.
But I also noticed the subtitle there, Making the Brave Leap. And you talk about, kind of living this life where, from the outside, it looked like you were living this perfect life. You had the big house, you had the marriage and the kids and all that kind of thing. And you knew that was not a role that you wanted to be playing. You didn't want to, it was the way I described my experience was that even though my MBA friends thought I'd won the career lottery having the job that I had, they didn't know or didn't appreciate that I would oftentimes cry Sunday night because I knew I had to go into this quote unquote awesome job. So
Yeah.
it was like I was playing a role that wasn't mine. I was trying to, meet other people's expectations rather than meet mine.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's fair to say that that would have been someone's dream job. They would not have felt the way you felt about it. And all of those things are
Absolutely.
okay. That's why we do this work. So I call it the brave leap. And I want to remind you all, you've heard this before in relation to success. I know you have, because you're all enlightened folks who learn and live in the real world. Success is self-defined. It has to be self-defined. And so does bravery. It's what I said earlier. What feels brave to me is going to be very different from what feels brave to you. And also, it could vary day to day. To this morning, and I can't really explain why. I've had a podcast, The Brave Files, for over 4 years. I've released an episode every week, except maybe 3 times in 4 years. And I didn't want to do it this morning. And I want to do the work. And I was like, I gotta do this. Oh, I gotta do it. And I put it off for like 2 hours. And then 10 minutes before I'm live with you, I'm like, okay, I fucking have to do it. And I did it. And I love my show. So what was that? So today, that's what felt brave to me, was showing up and doing this thing that I've committed to doing. And now it's done and I feel better. And that's great. And I don't have to worry about it again until next week. But also the brave thing that I'm thinking about with that is, this is a new feeling for me. I love my show. You're about to be a guest on my show. So I'm already live on your show. You're coming up in a few weeks, which I'm really excited. You're going to be in our Pride Month edition. It's going to be amazing. I love it so much. I don't want to walk away from it, but because I practice the brave method and I do this reassessment and this reframing and like, why do I feel this way? I'm going, though, something is different. What is it? So I'm looking into options. Maybe it's seasons where I record the whole season and I drop it at once and then I take a few months off. Maybe it's recording and prepping and getting them out there. And people don't know that I'm taking the time off. I don't know, but something's obviously got to shift, because for me to have this sort of resistance, I need something else. And I try to get really honest with myself about what that is. I am not an advocate of push through at all costs. There are times when we have to do that. Usually they relate to health, I think, and maybe our families. But from a work perspective, push through at all costs doesn't usually land you in the right space. You're better off to reassess and go, wait, what is this? And how can I do this differently to get a more desired result?
Absolutely. And I want to really focus in on one thing you're saying there, is that one, you paid attention to the way that you were feeling this morning, that you were feeling that resistance, rather than just, I know that I need to get this done. This is what I do on, Thursday or whatever day. And this is my routine, and I stick to that regardless. Instead, you had some nudges, internal or external or whatever, that kind of was saying, wait a minute, something's not right here. And you stopped and are now entertaining possibilities as to how things might be different.
Yeah. And it's already shifted. I would say in the last year or so, I let go of the pressure that really I am the only one that ever put on myself. I used to release late on Wednesday nights. I would do the work on Wednesday and set it up to release at like 11 p.m. so that it would be there in the morning, Thursday mornings. And in the last year, and now it's consistent, I would go, oh, you know what? If I do this Thursday morning, no one's going to care. Thursday's release day. If it comes out on Thursday, everyone's going to be fine. It is important as a podcaster to be consistent with your releases. And I know that is true. So in the last, I don't know, maybe 2-3 months, I have just gotten up and done it Thursday mornings. And so that was already a shift, but I was clearly feeling that resistance anyway. We need to feel our feelings. We need to understand them without judgment. They are only here to teach us. They're not here to make us good or bad or anything else. They're just feelings.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, for me, I suppressed my feelings for so long that, and it came at an incredibly high cost for me. Nearly lost my life because of it.
Yeah.
And so now I pay much more attention to my feelings. And one of the things that has shown up for me this week, and I think it's because of the medication change, I woke up Monday morning pretty depressed.
Oh no.
And have been struggling for the first few days of this week. And that is something that I have struggled with a lot in the past, but it hasn't been something that I struggle with currently. And so I'm like, what's going on here? How do I, and one of the things that I want to emphasize here is just noticing those things.
Yes.
Just noticing and paying attention to, well, how do I feel? Do I feel at, the top of my game, or am I struggling? Am I kind of, walking through molasses, or am I, tiptoeing through the tulips? That it's, we're the only ones who can really assess that.
Absolutely.
And as we do that, we can navigate to a better place and make the impact.
Awareness. I have all sorts of tips and tricks. I have the Brave method. There are steps you can follow, but people ask me all the time, where do you start? And that's the answer, is just pay attention. Be aware of the way you're behaving, of the way you're feeling physically, emotionally, mentally. Sometimes, often, just being aware of our behavior is enough to create shift subconsciously.
Yes.
That's why people who have health concerns and need to change their diet, like let's just say potentially you have a gluten intolerance, and they say, well, let's track it. And you start to write down everything you eat, and you go, oh man, I am eating gluten like 20 times a day. Well, how about what happens when I don't eat it? I feel different. It's just right. Like we track it and we realize that something, we want to create some sort of shift. That's a silly example. And I don't really know why I came up with that one, but there you go.
No, I think it's actually not a silly example, because, it's something that is becoming more prevalent in our, communal conversation, that when we track things, when we pay attention to what's going on, and especially one of the things that I think is super key is having some means by which you do track things. That it's not just something that you have to get hit by a 2x4 before you wake up and realize that you need to change your perspective, right? That when we have and I honestly, I use a mood tracker on my app on my phone, but it has been over a month since I last used it, but I used it again this morning, and it was something that I used daily for a very long time, but I did some traveling last month, and that always sets me off a little bit.
Yeah.
But just, what are the tools that we're using? And that could be anything, it could be, a morning walk through the forest, or, getting it out on the beach, or whatever. It can look lots of different ways, but I think the important thing is that we have a practice for checking in.
Yes. A practice.
So
I call it the 3 R's.
Tracking, or
yeah, I call it the 3 R's: reassessment, reframing, resilience. And I really encourage folks in my book, which I know, Steve, you have graciously read and reviewed. I suggest that you have systems in place to practice the 3 R's daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually. And that freaks people out big time, but it doesn't have to. Daily can be 5 minutes of, even a gratitude practice is a form of checking in, right? What went well today? What didn't? Why did that happen? What do I want to create tomorrow? Right. And then the further away you get, you're actually setting some sort of goals or commitments and things like that. But the daily is just how do I feel? It's been a long time since I've done speaking engagements specifically about creating balance, because people don't like that word anymore. I want to reclaim balance like we have reclaimed queer. Balance is not the scales of justice. Balance is not 50% in your personal life and 50% at work. Balance is simply the way you feel at the end of the day, the week, the month, the year. How do you feel about how you're spending your time, about who you're spending your time with, about what you are or are not achieving? If you feel good, you're balanced, but you got to check in on that regularly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You remind me of something that I heard again this week. I think it's Archimedes who said, give me a long enough lever, I can move the world.
There you go.
And that's really about balance too. And the cool thing is that know the principles of how to use that leverage in our lives, then we can move that fulcrum, to where it needs to be in order to create the shift that we want to be creating. So balance isn't, 50-50 or 25-25-25. It's whatever works for us in order to get the result that we want to get, whether that be, having an impact on somebody else, waking up in the morning and being energized and excited about what the day ahead, or, driving from, where I live in Asheville, North Carolina to Colorado or something, they all require different areas of attention and different types of leverage. But if we pay attention, if we're mindful of what the result that we're trying to get and what it takes to get there, then we can get there.
Absolutely. Yeah. You have to be mindful. You have to be aware to go anywhere, or you'll go, but without your own permission, and you may not like where you end up.
Yes. Yeah. Kind of on autopilot, and here you are.
I mean, every decision is a decision. Every indecision is a decision. When you don't make a choice, you're making a choice. The question is, do you want to fucking be in charge or not of your own life?
Right.
It's that simple.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's why I refer to it as, you're going to take up the pen to write your own story, because you have the ability to do that at any point in your life, to instead of someone handing you a script, you saying, no, that script doesn't work for me. I'm going to create my own that is so much more enjoyable and profitable and engaging.
Absolutely.
So I am curious how life is. When did you make the transition that you've made? How many years has it been?
There's a little fluidity there. Essentially, it's been about 10 years, but legally it's been about 8. Okay. And I don't want to give off the impression that I don't have difficult challenges or tough days, because I do, but every day is 1,000 times better than those days. And the only thing I wish, and I don't spend much time doing this because this is a wasted opportunity, wasted time, wasted energy. I sometimes wish I could go back to when my children were really small and participate as me instead of who I thought I needed to participate as. That is the only true loss I feel like I have.
Yeah.
Can't do anything about it. I do my
totally
best moving forward. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all we can do, and I think about, especially going through the challenges that I had and my children being present throughout all of it. I wasn't, and I'm still working on being fully available for my family, but I certainly was at a much reduced capacity than I am now. And I can either, use that as an anchor that pulls me down, or I can use it as a foundation to say, okay, well, let's build from there and create something better for today. Right. We can either be empowered by our past, or we can be disempowered by it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'm a little curious as to, tell me about the work that you do and why bravery? Why the focus on being brave?
Because it found me. That's why. Right? Like it's just what the universe gave me.
Okay.
And we have a choice. If we're paying attention, we can see what the universe wants for us. And we have a choice. Are we going to take it, or are we not going to take it? And brave was just what showed up. It was the word that kept coming to me. And I think it was because there was so much fear attached. And I knew that if I was feeling this way, other people were feeling this way, that we can feel broken and brave, that we can feel scared and brave. We can feel imposter syndrome and still be brave. It's just small incremental steps. And so I really wanted to redefine what that meant for people. That's what the Everyday Brave Revolution is about. What is brave to you today? and owning it. Because when we recognize that our behavior feels brave, like how dumb that choosing to publish my podcast episode this morning is what felt brave to me today, although I shouldn't judge it, but that is going to sound so silly to so many people, but it was, right? So when we choose bravely on purpose, we start to make bigger choices for ourselves. And then those choices start to have bigger payoffs and rewards. And that energy is contagious to the people around us, even if the bravest thing you've done is get out of bed that day.
Mm.
And for you, so brave to recognize, whoa, I feel this way that I haven't felt in a long time. I think maybe this is a med thing. What do I want to do about this? That's so brave.
Yeah. And, I've had days where literally getting out of bed to take a shower was the bravest.
Absolutely.
And honestly, probably the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
Just taking a shower. It literally took me 2 hours from lying in bed to in the shower and done, just because I felt like I was walking through molten lead. It was, every step was difficult.
We need to honor those things and love ourselves in those moments, because that version of you, Steve, was loving you hard, protecting you hard. It felt like he was against you, but he wasn't against you. He was keeping you alive.
Yeah.
And so thanking the past versions of ourselves who did things and made choices that we wish we hadn't done, or that we're sorry, or we do differently now, just love those parts of yourself and thank them, because they protected you and they got you to where you are today.
Mm. Thank you for that. So when you invite, and you seem to be doing a lot of inviting people to step into this, to make the brave leap. And sometimes that leap is, 6 inches, and sometimes it's a whole canyon.
Yeah.
What is the hope that you have for people making that brave leap?
That's a great question. And no one's ever asked me in that way. My hope for them is that they feel pride and joy.
Mm.
That's it, right? Because we do magical things from those spaces. We change the world from those spaces. And I like to remind folks that it's a lot easier to go 6 inches than over a canyon. So how do we take the canyon and break it down into 6-inch steps?
Mm. Excellent point. Yeah, because it's so much, as you said, it's a lot easier to make that 6-inch leap rather than the canyon sized leaps. Also a lot safer.
Yeah. I mean, it's overwhelming, right? I can't speak for everyone, but I know for me and many of my clients, when we have big, huge aspirations or projects that we're working on, if I don't break it down into a really clear roadmap, which is something I help clients do, I'm just going to scroll on TikTok or play on Twitter, because it's so overwhelming. You don't know where to start. And the secret is it doesn't really matter where you start.
Mm.
So if you break it down and you pick a starting spot and then you just go, you'll get shit done.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's, as you say that, I'm thinking about what you said just a bit ago about our past versions of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That we're if you were to look at Google Chrome and look at the version that it's at right now, it's version, I don't know, last time I looked, which was quite a while ago, was version 161 point whatever, and each of those iterations improved the experience, incrementally. And we're on version, Heather version whatever,
Yeah. I don't know. Let's do 47 years by the number of days. And that's the version I'm on. Every day is a new version.
There you go. So, and how do we create in that direction that we want to be creating so that we end up with the result that we want to end up.
And that's really what the Brave method is there to help people do, is to make sure you're creating in the direction you want to be creating. You're honest about it. You feel as good as possible throughout the process, and you're willing to pivot and change when that's also the right choice.
That's a good point. And, you made a pretty significant pivot in your life 10 years ago, and I suspect that you're and even just today, when you're talking about your podcast and how that might be different, that's another pivot.
Mhm.
What is that process like in making those pivots?
Oh, goodness. And I'm in the middle of a huge business pivot right now as well. I closed a really wonderful, beautiful, thriving program because I did not have the capacity to serve that program in the way that it deserved. So, and that was hard. It made me a lot of money and it made me really happy. I loved doing it. But it was not sustainable. And I knew that because I practiced the brave method and because I was like, why does this feel so hard? This is not good, hard, bad, hard, right? Not hurt so good kind of way. Like, I can't do this. And just logically, like with capacity, with time, with 4 kids, all of these things. So I'm phasing out that program. It's not fully closed until August. I do have one group that I'm still supporting on it. And then I created the Brave Circle, which is a networking membership community for coaches, consultants, strategists, OBMs, folks like you and me, whose jobs are to help other people live at their highest self or have businesses that are most connected to them and as successful as possible. Because we don't have a community to hold us. We don't have a slew of raging fans who are going to go, that's an amazing idea. Let's do it. Let me help you hold you accountable. Let's try it like this. Or when we fail, which we will, they say, well, it's okay. What did we learn from it? And they kind of hold us and support us. It comes with so many cool things. And including quarterly dreamscaping strategy planning workshops, which I normally charge quite a bit of money for, and it's included in the program. So as I've been actually making this transition, what do I want to keep? What do I need to let go of? How do I want it to feel for everyone else? How do I want it to feel for me? It has been a very difficult process because it's hard to let go of something that's good to build something that's great.
Yes.
Because it's good.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it is letting go of the good in order to experience the great.
Yeah.
And isn't that what living a brave life, living a great life is all about? That it's not just settling for what is good, but it is holding on to the possibility and making that brave leap to what could be great.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for me, it was a lot of surrender. It was a lot of sit back. I don't know if you do human design stuff or not, and I love it. And I'm a projector in human design.
Okay.
And that means that I am a processor. I wait for the invitation. This is so fascinating. I was just talking to my partner about it last night and she goes, but that sounds like lazy. And I said, no. The waiting for the invitation doesn't mean I can't seek the invitation. It challenges me to show up in the right spaces so that the invitation presents itself to me. So what it was telling me was, how do I get reconnected with these people in the community? How do I show up? So having lots of meetings and lots of calls and just, sort of surrendering to the how instead of building and having it not be what we want it to be in the end.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's that waiting period can feel like, as your partner suggested, lazy. And I do some of that myself. I have both the creative energy and also the clarifying energy. And the clarifying energy oftentimes seems like, not really energy at all. It's more about destruction and removal and simplifying. And it's like, well, how do you, get down to the bare essence where it's really good,
Yeah, I call that unraveling. Destruction. I mean, and sometimes I call it crumbling. Like there are some things that just need to go away.
Right.
But there are some things where, and for me, these switch from one program to the other was more of an unraveling, taking it almost like knitting, taking it apart and keeping the good parts, the parts that work for you, and then rebuilding something else with that.
Absolutely. And kind of going off that human design idea, and honestly, I've done very little with human design, but just the concept of it, that we do have a design And I recently interviewed someone about Akashic records and so forth, and, kind of our blueprints, our soul blueprint. But and as a story architect, the thing that I look at is, what are we building? What are we trying to create? And how do we know whether we're actually building in the direction that we want to be building, rather than just, building a Winchester house where, we've got doors and windows and stairways
in random places. I would love to know what your human design type is. I have a guess, but these things are scientific. We can figure it out.
I would have to look or maybe even take it again to see what that is. But
all you need to know is your birth date, time, and where you were born.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I've done it before. It's just it kind of went in and came out. And I will also say that the description that I read for it did not jive with my perception of myself.
Oh, now I want to do it. Okay, hold on. We're just going to do it. Is that okay?
Well, it is okay, except I'd have to actually go look at my birth certificate to see what time I was born.
You don't know what time you were born. All right. Well, you need to know that.
Like, how exact do I need to be with that?
Probably within about 10 minutes.
Oh, well then, yes, I would definitely have to look it up.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I will ping you. I'll let you know after.
Ping me, and then you'll have to come back and tell everybody listening what you
this
discovered.
Is what my human design is.
Because they're going to be curious. I mean, what I love about human design, I'm actually in the process of getting certified in human design, is that it is not about us changing anything about the way we're made. It's about us honoring the way we're made and processing, knowing how we are our highest aligned selves, and feeling when we know we are not at our highest self. My not self, that's what they call it, is bitterness. If I'm feeling bitter, it's the indicator that I am out of alignment and not truly behaving as myself. Absolutely. And so those things are really good to know.
Absolutely. And, it's basically the principles that I use to navigate from a really depressed, dark state to, a much healthier and joyful state, was just figuring out where was I out of alignment and what did I need to do to get into alignment.
Absolutely. I'm sending this to you right now, Steve. So when you're done, you can go find it.
So to our audience, thank you for participating in this human design exercise.
Maybe you can put it in the show notes. You can put the link if you guys want to check it out. It's really
there we
cool.
go. So I will put this in the show notes so that you can go and figure out what your human design is. This has been fun.
So much fun. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Heather. So my last question that one of my last questions that I like to ask all my guests is, what is your heart calling you to do today?
Yeah. Today, this day specifically, my heart is calling me to rest, because yesterday didn't stop. It started at 6:30 and it didn't stop until 11 p.m. And that is not me and my highest self. And so I have 3 things. Well, I guess if you count the podcast episode, there were 4 things that were important to do today. And then the rest of it, I'm going to honor relaxation and self.
That's awesome. And I totally admire, respect, and celebrate you for one, giving yourself what you need.
Thank you.
So that you can be who you are meant to be. My last question for you is just, how do our audience members continue the conversation with you?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So I do, and Steve is a regular participant, so thank you for that. I do a weekly live show called Brave in Action every Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Central. You can watch it on YouTube, watch it on Instagram, or via Facebook through my Brave on Purpose group. And I share anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes of some way that we can go out and put our bravery into action. Sometimes they're little ways, sometimes they're big ways. So come and hang out. And the easiest way to get alert to know about that is to visit vickeryandco.com/social. You can sign up for reminders. You can watch past episodes. You can find me on all the social media platforms, and we can hang out And just be present and see what resonates with you. And if it feels good to you, keep coming back.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Heather. This has been a joy and a very rewarding conversation.
Thanks, Steve. It's always such a pleasure.
Absolutely. So to our audience, until our stories meet again, be the bright light in someone's dark night.